There comes a moment in every life when the noise of the outer world grows quiet enough for you to hear something far more intimate. Not a voice from outside, not advice from others, not the echo of past experiences, but a quiet recognition rising from within you. A recognition that your experience of love has never been random, that the way people show up, the way they stay or leave, the way they speak to you or withdraw from you, has always been shaped by something deeper than behavior. It has been shaped by state, not circumstances, not timing, not luck, but the inner position you have been occupying all along. And if this is true, if your inner world is the source and the outer world is the reflection, then the question is no longer, why is love not working for me? The real question becomes, who am I being within myself that love is responding to this way? Because reality is not a judge. It is not a separate force deciding what you deserve. It is a mirror with perfect obedience, reflecting the identity you continuously inhabit. And love, especially, is the most sensitive mirror of all. It reveals not what you want, but what you assume you are in relation to it. So if you have been waiting to be chosen, waiting to be prioritized, waiting to be valued, waiting to be loved the way you desire, you are not waiting on a person. You are waiting on a shift in state. Because somewhere within you, there is a version of you already experiencing the love you seek, not as hope, not as future possibility, but as lived inner reality. And that version is not far away. It is not somewhere you have to become later. It is something you have to occupy now. Love does not begin with another person. It begins with assumption. And assumption is not what you say. It is what you live from internally when no one is watching. It is the tone of your inner dialogue when you think about being loved. It is the emotional atmosphere you return to when you are alone. It is the identity you accept as true about yourself in the silence of your own mind. And here is the part most people miss. You are always assuming something about love. Even in confusion, even in doubt, even in longing, you are still assuming. You are either assuming love is distant, or you are assuming love is natural. You are either assuming rejection is likely, or you are assuming connection is inevitable. You are either rehearsing absence, or you are rehearsing presence. But reality is not responding to your words. It is responding to your inner rehearsal. Think of your life as a continuous projection. What you call relationships are not random encounters. They are reflections of the emotional and mental identity you have been consistent in, not once, not occasionally, but habitually, because the law does not respond to desire. It responds to dominant inner identity, and identity is built in repetition. The same way a path forms in grass when people repeatedly walk over it. Your experiences in love form through repeated inner walking of the same emotional route. So if the inner path has been, I'm not chosen, I have to chase love, I'm not enough to be fully valued, then reality, without debate, without delay, without emotional bias, will echo that route back in physical form, not to punish you, but to remain faithful to what you have been embodying. But here is where everything begins to shift, because the same mechanism that created the current pattern is the exact mechanism that dissolves it. You do not fix love by fixing other people. You do not repair love by analyzing relationships. You do not transform love by waiting for better behavior. You transform love by entering a new state of being the one who is already loved, not the one trying to be loved, not the one negotiating for love, but the one from whom love naturally flows and returns. Close the gap inside yourself, not by force, but by assumption. Let your inner conversation begin to change. Not I hope someone loves me deeply someday, but I am someone who is deeply loved. Not as affirmation, but as identity, because identity is what reality obeys. And at first, the outer world may disagree. That is expected. The outer world is always behind. It is always echoing what you used to be, not what you are becoming. This delay is not rejection. It is lag. A mirror cannot update faster than the image is changed in front of it. So, when nothing seems to shift, it does not mean nothing is happening. It means the inner recalibration is still stabilizing. This is where most people break the process. They return to old thinking. They say, "It's not working. Nothing is changing. I guess this is just how my love life is." And in that moment, they step back into the old identity. And reality, always loyal, resumes the old reflection. Not because transformation is impossible, but because consistency was abandoned. To create your desired love, you must become selective not only with people, but with thoughts, with emotional rehearsals, with inner conversations, because your inner world is where all relationships begin before they ever appear in form, before a message is sent, before a call is made, before a meeting happens. There is always an internal relationship already active within you. So the question becomes, what relationship are you practicing inside your imagination? Do you see yourself being chosen? Do you hear yourself being valued? Do you feel yourself being prioritized without struggle? Do you experience calm certainty in being wanted? Or do you repeatedly rehearse confusion, distance, inconsistency, emotional uncertainty? Because imagination is not escape, it is rehearsal. And rehearsal becomes reality when repeated with feeling. Now, understand this clearly. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are the state of. So, if you want consistent love, you must stop identifying with inconsistency internally. If you want clarity in love, you must stop living in emotional confusion inside. If you want loyalty, you must stop rehearsing abandonment. Because the inner and outer cannot contradict each other forever. One will eventually win, and it is always the inner state that wins. So begin where everything actually begins, in silence, in imagination, in inner experience. See your self-love not as a dream, but as present fact. Feel the ease of being chosen without effort. Let your mind rest in the feeling of emotional safety, not because someone gave it to you, but because you are now generating it. And when the old thoughts return because they will, you do not argue with them. You do not fight them. You do not analyze them. You simply withdraw attention. Like closing a door on an old room you no longer live in, because attention is agreement, and what you agree with internally becomes your instruction to reality. There is a version of you who is already living the love you desire. That version is not lucky, not special, not distant. It is simply a version that stopped rehearsing lack and started inhabiting fulfillment. That is all. No struggle. No forcing, just sustained inner occupation. And when you persist in that occupation, something subtle begins to happen. Your reactions change. Your tone changes. Your expectations change. Your presence changes. And without effort, your external experiences begin to reorganize around that new internal signature. Not instantly, but inevitably. Because reality cannot ignore a sustained identity shift, and love, when it finally appears in alignment with your new state, will not feel like something foreign arriving. It will feel familiar, like recognition, like return, like something you stopped chasing because you became it first. So stop negotiating with appearances. Stop asking reality for permission to feel loved. Stop waiting for evidence before embodiment. That is not how creation works. It never has been. You do not receive love to feel loved. You feel loved to receive love. You become the state first, and the world follows without exception. And when doubt whispers again, telling you to go back to old assumptions, remember this. Doubt is not truth. It is memory. It is the echo of an old identity trying to survive your transformation. You do not need to destroy it. You only need to outgrow it. Because reality is not fixed. It is responsive. It is impressionable. It is shaped by the identity you repeatedly inhabit, and love, more than anything else, reflects that identity with precision. So today, choose differently, not in effort, but in state, not in desperation, but in quiet certainty. Begin to inhabit the version of you who is already loved, and stay there long enough for reality to recognize the change, because it will. It always does. And when it does, you will realize something that was true all along. You were never waiting for love. You were only learning how to become the version of you who naturally lives inside it. And this is where true transformation begins. Not when the person calls. Not when the relationship appears. Not when the circumstances finally line up in your favor. Transformation begins the moment you stop looking outward for confirmation and start living inwardly from completion, because the version of you that possesses the love you desire does not wake up each morning wondering if it will happen. That version already knows. There is a quiet confidence in the one who has become the wish fulfilled. There is a peace that replaces striving. There is a calm certainty that replaces obsession. The desperate need to control outcomes begins to dissolve because the outcome is no longer viewed as something separate from self. You understand that love is not something you chase. Love is something you embody. And when you embody it, the entire atmosphere of your life begins to change. People can sense it, not because of what you say, not because of what you post, not because of what you try to convince them of, but because consciousness radiates. Your state speaks long before your words do. Have you ever entered a room and instantly felt someone's confidence without them saying a single thing? Have you ever met someone whose peace seemed contagious? Have you ever noticed how certain people naturally attract affection, opportunities, and attention without appearing to force anything? It is not because they possess something you do not. It is because they have unconsciously entered a state that supports those experiences. The law responds to state, always, not effort, not wishing, not pleading, state. And so if you wish to create your desired love, your focus cannot remain on changing another person. Your focus must become changing the version of you that experiences love. This is the great secret. The person is not the source. The state is. The relationship is not the source. The state is. The text message is not the source. The state is. The commitment is not the source. The state is. Everything you seek externally is merely a shadow cast by an internal reality, and shadows cannot be changed directly. Only the object creating them can. So stop chasing shadows. Return to the source. Return to yourself. Ask yourself honestly, what would the version of me who is deeply loved feel right now? How would they think? How would they move through the day? How would they respond to silence? How would they respond to uncertainty? Would they panic? Would they obsess? Would they constantly seek reassurance? Or would they remain grounded in the knowing that love belongs to them naturally? Begin there, not tomorrow, now. Because every moment spent occupying the new state weakens the old one. Every time you choose faith over fear, you reinforce a new identity. Every time you return to the feeling of being chosen instead of abandoned, valued instead of ignored, secure instead of anxious, you are building a new foundation, and foundations determine what can be built upon them. You cannot construct a palace upon the foundation of doubt. You cannot create lasting love upon the foundation of insecurity. The inner structure must change first, then the outer structure follows. This is why imagination is sacred. Most people treat imagination as entertainment. The awakened creator treats imagination as creation. Your imagination is the workshop where reality receives its instructions. It is the place where future experiences are designed before they become visible. Every loving conversation you imagine, Every scene of connection you feel, every moment of fulfillment you rehearse is impressing itself upon consciousness, and consciousness is always seeking expression. What is impressed within must eventually be expressed without. The seed cannot remain a seed forever. The blueprint cannot remain hidden forever. The assumption cannot remain invisible forever. It must take form. It must become visible. It must manifest. That is its nature. But your task is not to force the manifestation. Your task is to remain loyal to the state. The gardener does not dig up the seed every morning to check its progress. The gardener plants, waters, and trusts. Likewise, you must plant the assumption. Water it with feeling, nourish it with repetition, protect it from doubt, and trust the unseen process unfolding beneath the surface. There are movements taking place that your physical eyes cannot yet see. There are bridges forming. There are conversations unfolding. There are opportunities arranging themselves. There are circumstances shifting. There are paths being prepared, not because you manipulated them, but because your state is calling them into alignment. The universe is constantly reorganizing itself around your dominant assumptions. This is why persistence matters, not because you must convince reality, but because you must stabilize your identity. The world changes automatically once the state becomes natural. The real work is not changing the world. The real work is becoming the person for whom the desired world is normal. And when it becomes normal within you, manifestation stops feeling miraculous. It feels inevitable. You stop wondering if it will happen. You begin expecting it. You stop hoping. You begin knowing. You stop chasing. You begin allowing. And in that allowing, reality begins to move with astonishing ease. What once felt impossible begins to feel ordinary. What once felt distant begins to feel close. What once felt unavailable begins to feel natural. Because you are no longer trying to attract love. You have become the consciousness of love itself. And from that state, everything changes. Not because you changed the mirror, but because you changed the face standing before it. The mirror had no choice but to respond. It always responds. It always reflects. It always echoes. And now it is preparing to echo something new. A new story, a new identity, a new experience of love. One created not by chance, not by luck, not by circumstance, but by the power of a consciousness that finally remembered its role as the creator.